we're back. Hello, Benji.
Hello, Avi. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
I want to thank you, by the way.
You're welcome.
Well, you don't know what I'm thanking you for.
I'm polite.
Okay. I want to thank you for coming to my second ever attempt at comedy.
Oh, that's at your... okay. Now it makes sense.
That's what it was. I did stand-up comedy, and I happened to be in Jerusalem anyway, and there was some open mic night.
Look, you're halfway there. You stood up, and it is stand-up comedy.
I did that.
So, yeah.
No, but
I was laughing.
You were laughing. That's what I really want to thank you for. Like, I was able to discern your laughter among the throng.
It's funny.
Okay, good. I made fun of being bald. Remember that?
Yeah, but why would you do that? What's your connection to baldness?
I just like making fun of other people.
Oh, I see.
I'm a bad person.
Are you bald? I can't tell because of the light shining back from me from your head.
I'm not bald. I shaved my head, but whatever. I don't want to do my whole bit now because I'm
You should
I'm hoping
come
that
and
when
pay.
there's a Netflix special, people will all laugh.
Right. For example, last night there was a 15 shekel charge, but that's what we had to pay to go on stage.
And I want to thank you for paying for me.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
You can bit me back. I don't know if Americans know what that means to bit someone back. It sounds like someone bit someone and someone's biting them back, but that's not what it means.
It's like a Marv Albert thing.
What's it, Venmo? What's the other one?
Venmo.
It's Israeli Venmo.
Exactly. We're going to try to do something now that may be impossible. I mean, we're taking a crazy leap in what is only our second podcast because our mission statement is to try to talk about things that are topical, things that are important, things that are cool in a funny way because we both consider ourselves funny. I mean, each one considers himself funny.
I'm not sure if that's the vision or the mission statement.
I might be getting confused.
We'll go over the presentation later.
Okay.
Our mission statement is to change the world one episode at a time. The vision is maybe what you said.
Oh, so I don't want to do this podcast anymore. I don't want to change the world.
One podcast at a time. It's not.
So meaning a little bit, incrementally.
You almost won't discern it. It's imperceptible.
Okay, that's fine. I can do that. But when I look back after many years, like, is the world going to be completely different because of us?
It may be. That may be.
But in a good way or like Terminator way?
The way it looks so far, especially this episode,
okay,
not a good way. I'm not sure it's Terminator.
Anyway, so whatever our mission statement is, whatever our vision is, it's to try to be funny. And we decided that we would cover something that's very personal. Mm-hmm. And talk about the fact that we're both fathers of boys who are serving in the war, who are in the Israeli army, who we're very proud of, and what it's like to be a father of a boy who is at war.
I think they're probably men by now. That's one of the...
Well, that's a funny thing.
Young men.
Yeah, we think of them as boys. My mother says that to me. You'll always be my little boy.
Right.
Right.
These are like... yeah.
So it's a heavy topic, but I think we can still find some humor.
Now, that's not fair, because before the show, you said that you thought we couldn't make it funny, and I'm the one who said we can make it funny.
I don't remember that. Also, I drank to get through this thing, so I don't remember anything.
Fine. But let's see if we can. And we'll try not to be too dark in the humor.
We'll try.
Okay.
So... Your son serves... We're not going to use their names. Should we use their names?
No. My son and your son.
Your son is in tanks.
Yes.
And my son...
It's a tankless job.
Good. We already made you laugh out there. And my son is in infantry in Nachal. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, I didn't know much. My son is at the crazy thing is, I think today he's done with his mandatory service. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that has no meaning anymore.
It has no meaning. There's like a ceremony associated with it, and you get 2 weeks off beforehand, but he's in Rafiach right now. Right. I didn't know anything about the Army, honestly, until the war started, even though he'd been in the Army like forever. Mm-hmm. Whenever he would tell me about stuff, it was sort of like when my wife would tell me about her day at work. It'd be like, Like, I didn't get anything. I didn't know what a dude was. I didn't know what a machlaka was. I don't know what any of these things.
You're such a good husband that you know that that's what your wife is talking about.
My wife's also in the Army. Right?
My wife might... No, I think she might also be when she's talking. That might be what she might be talking about her day at work. I don't even...
There's no way to know.
I'm not sure even what she's talking about.
I think she's talking about work. There goes our audience of two, by the way. Right. But I didn't pay much attention to what he was talking about ever when it came to the Army. I mean, I did. I tried to understand a little bit.
Did you did not serve in the Army?
I did not serve in the Army.
So
you did.
I served in the Army for a year, yeah.
Okay.
In the Machal program in 1992.
Okay.
1991, 92. Right after the Gulf War, which is probably the best time to serve in the Army. Like I met in the beginning of this war, I actually met visiting my son just between October 7th and when they went into Gaza. We went down, me and another guy whose son is also in the same unit here from Ra'anana, and after we saw them, we kind of were leaving where they were in like this field, and we saw these kids who were soldiers who were resting, and they were, it was the lead up to going in,
Right.
and so I tried to make some like jokes like to lighten it up for them a little bit. But like I said, I was like, oh, any lone soldiers here? I was a lone soldier. I'm like, but you guys really screwed up the timing. This is the worst time to volunteer for the Israeli Army. I volunteered after the Gulf War. It was guaranteed peace.
Right.
You guys really should have thought of that.
No,
they smiled, but they probably cried when I left.
They probably cried when you left, right?
But I took their mind off it for a moment. And maybe even after
good
I
of
left,
you.
they were like,
It's good.
who's a jerk? So I took their mind off it.
Absolutely. I used to think of the Army, I think most Israelis did, as like a resume builder, like before October 7th. Like, ooh.
Resume builder, character builder.
Right. I think in part because there are no good universities here, really, in Israel. It's like, oh, my kid's doing that, and you're supposed to be impressed.
Right.
Like, oh, he's going to Harvard, or, oh, he's in whatever unit. That's kind of all we have.
Except for Reichman University, Shalem College, and Yeshiva University, Israel. I may want to do lectures there or something in the future. I want to keep that option.
Oh, I thought they're potential sponsors.
Also, they could be potential sponsors.
Okay, universities are...
There's some excellent universities.
Everything's amazing. Yeah, and there's a real campus life in all of them, right? Exactly. Anyway, bad timing for our sons. And I thought we would maybe talk about, in the beginning, some of the funny things, because there are.
When before my son went to the Army, I said, look, like for me, I was in the Army. It's challenging, and like you said, resume builder. It's there. You grow through hard experiences. But I said, the chances of there being a war when you're in the Army are very small, and the chances, even if there is a war, if that happens, the chances of anything happening to you are really small.
Right.
So you don't have to be afraid. So on October 8th, I said, look, the second thing I said is still true.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that relaxed him.
Yeah. It's hard to know what to say. Let's start with that. It's like there are people who are good at Shiva calls and people who are bad. There are people who pride themselves on saying always the right thing. And people say, now I'm not in the Army. I'm just the father of someone in the Army. But like whenever there's this weird like hierarchy of people that you meet, especially in the beginning, is like, is your son in or is your son out? Is he in or is he out? And if you're in, there's like an automatic kinship of, I kind of know what you're going through as a parent.
Right.
But people say things like, I'm sure the war is going to be good for him because it'll build character or it'll of this like camaraderie. Like they've seen a lot of war movies from Hollywood.
Right.
But that's Hollywood. Like Jews invented that so people wouldn't focus on Jews.
And as you're talking, I'm thinking also, like this is a super heavy topic, right? There's people who I'll put it out like yesterday. We're recording this a day when there were 11 funerals, and there's people that we know who have lost soldiers, and we're not going to start crying here because the microphones are not waterproof. Right. But we wanted to. I mean, we talked about this before. We wanted to talk about this, even though it's like the heaviest thing that's going on in our lives and in Israel in general. And everything we do here is against that background. I admit that I cry pretty frequently. Like I'll just start crying. I cried this morning listening to, they had a report. They have a report about every funeral on the radio. They'll take like a short excerpt of a eulogy and talk about the soldier who died. And today there were 11. Yeah. I was in the car on the way back from an MRI exam that I booked in Akko, or for our American listeners, Acre. I guess also our British listeners.
Also Crusaders.
also crusaders.
Yeah.
And the reason I chose Akko is because it has the shortest waiting time for an MRI. MRIs are hard to get in Israel. In Tel Aviv, it's like a 6-month waiting list. But in Akko, it's only like a 3-week waiting list because it's a dangerous place to go, relatively in terms of the air raid sirens and the frequency of drones that are shot and people have to go into the shelters. So I took advantage of that and booked there. And so that's like in the background too. Also, GPS doesn't work at all in that area. Like starting even south of Haifa, it stops working.
But you got there.
I didn't. I got there. I was late. She called me because she knew I'd get lost. They called me yesterday to say GPS doesn't work, so learn the route. And then they called me to help me get there at the last kilometer to find the place.
I got an MRI at the very start of the war because
you have it on is it MRI for your brain?
I don't remember what it was for. I've had so many. But the crazy thing was, in the beginning, Israel was like a hellscape, meaning all the young people were missing, right? Everyone was in reserve duty, in Miluim.
So a lot of open appointments?
All the appointments were open.
Right.
It was crazy. I could have gotten like 6 MRIs if I wanted to.
But the MRIs keep going. The two technicians who did it were both Arab. Were both, I think, Christian Arab. And
how do you know they're Christian Arab?
Because their name was George. And maybe the other one wasn't, but I think George is a Christian Arab.
And Ringo.
Right. And so that goes on because they're not in the army. They're doing this, and they'd be past the army anyway because they're technicians, but they're not in reserve duty. So it's a really interesting country.
Right. It is interesting, and
now they ask you at the MRI, which I'm not sure they used to ask. They used to ask if you have piercings or any metal in your body.
Okay.
Now they straight out say, do you have shrapnel? Even on the form to fill out, they want to know if you have shrapnel because it's unfortunately it's not very common, but a lot of soldiers have a lot of injuries are caused by shrapnel. This is a very funny topic.
I think you're mispronouncing the word, by the way.
Shrapnel?
Stop saying that.
Why?
Shrapnel.
Well, I'm saying shrapnel.
Every time you say it, it's upsetting me.
Well, how do you say you should pronounce it?
Shrapnel.
I had another mispronunciation episode this week. Maybe I need a brain MRI.
Yeah.
Last episode I told you about how I used to say mishappen instead of misshapen.
Yeah.
Because there's only one S dividing those two.
I know, I got that.
And you know the publication, The Free Beacon?
I've read it.
In my mind, it was the free bacon.
You say that?
And
you say, have you
I
read
never
it?
had a chance to say it. It would just be in like on my, I would read it.
Right. I think I only have a podcast partner for like the next 3 weeks.
And I should have known there's no such thing as free bacon.
There isn't. No.
All right, back to our topic.
So it's all encompassing, I would say, and I'm sure you would agree.
There's no such thing as a free bacon.
No, there isn't. But there is a bit of humor in there, and then maybe we'll get to the heavier stuff.
Okay.
For me, it's like a 24-hour worry, but there are moments of insanity. One would be the parent WhatsApp group for the unit.
Oh, the parents' WhatsApp group.
For the unit that my son is in.
In any other context, it would be an inexhaustible wellspring of comedy.
It would. There are still moments.
It's like a sociological biopsy that never ends.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It really never ends.
Are you getting this down? Some of this is very colorful description.
You're recording it.
Oh, okay.
I hope. I hope not. What happens in this WhatsApp group is somebody writes something. Like I heard.
It's a WhatsApp group of, just to clarify for our listeners, if there are any.
Yeah.
It's parents of soldiers in the, I guess, battalion.
I don't know what
that your son is.
It's like 20-something.
It's on the Pluga level.
20-something people. Yeah.
So maybe that's the Machlaka. In tanks.
That sorry. No. It's the full Pluga. Right. So it's 100-something.
Yeah.
So and you got all types. My son is the staff sergeant for a religious group of soldiers who come from Hester Yeshiva. And that's a funny existence. Like when they're on a hatkafa, when they're on an offensive, they're going house to house and they're sleeping in different houses every night. And when they get to a house that they're going to sleep in, they prepare the house, they cover the windows, whatever they do, and then they kosher the kitchen. Really, it's not a joke. So people are keeping it real even in Gaza. But the WhatsApp group has all types, right? Like, because there's everybody in there. And invariably, you have these parents who will write something like, I heard from my boy today, and everything's fine.
Right.
You know, they hear, basically, the soldiers are not allowed to bring phones in with them.
Right.
But they have Nokias. By the way, we can make fun of Nokia. Like, we're not going to have them as any sort of sponsor, because the cheapest, worst phone in the world, the flip phone, they just call Nokias now. Think of how the mighty have fallen.
It's a brand name. It's like the brand for bad, useless, Haredi phones.
I guess so. Yeah.
Phones for the ultra-Orthodox that don't have the capacity for internet, and so they don't give away the location.
Exactly. But Nokia was once, ooh, you got a Nokia? It's like, all I have is this Nokia.
I think that's what people told you, Benji, when you had your Nokia.
My Nokia and you had your iPhone, right?
It was much cooler to have an Ericsson, even then.
So someone will write, wow, I heard from my boy today, they're doing fine. And everyone will then respond, oh, that's amazing, amazing, Hashem Yishmor, Lochamim K'mo Arayot, they're fighting like lions, on and on and on and on.
Right.
And this happens every few days.
Everyone has to respond.
Everybody has to respond.
Right.
And someone will write, just put an emoji. You know, like, just put thumbs up or a heart.
In other words, right. So not everyone has to respond. Just put an emoji to the message that said that, and then that way we can avoid a million lines of WhatsApp.
Exactly.
Right.
But every single time someone writes, just write an emoji, they write that. Other people write, that's a great idea, just emojis. Let's from now on just emojis.
Great idea.
They write it.
Yeah. Amen v'amen.
I get tremendous joy out of watching that happen every time.
Yeah. We have a similar group. Yeah. We're a similar group and similar thing. And it's an endless supply also of stickers, like heartfelt, the WhatsApp stickers.
Tons of that.
All right.
Yeah.
Like all the Shabbat Shalom.
Flowers.
Amen, amen. We've had linguistic arguments. We have a linguist in the group.
Really?
Who settled it for our group, but I don't know what other groups did. Was it, there was an argument whether you should say Sheyachzeru Bishalom or Sheyachzeru Lishalom.
Huh.
Come back like in peace or come back to peace. And there's arguments both ways, what the wish is supposed to be. And everyone's very careful. It's like a baseball team, that's being very careful not to jinx anything. It's like a guy in a hitting streak. He doesn't want to screw anything up, lest the gods of baseball end his hitting streak. And so we also, I guess, want
there's something to that.
The good streak to go on. And thank God, we wouldn't be talking about this if we weren't on a good streak.
Right. I would say, though, that having a kid in the Army does make you superstitious, let's say. Or it makes me superstitious.
Yeah. I try to avoid superstition.
I do too.
Is that why you're wearing the garlic around your neck?
Exactly. That's what it is. Weirdly, this group is filled with these women who are amazing also. Like, they get stuff into Gaza. I think they're driving it in themselves at night. Like, they can get anything in there. Like, kids need schnitzel, get schnitzel.
Right.
They're like Wolt drivers, basically. They might be Wolt drivers. Who will go anywhere and do anything. So that's an amazing, funny thing sometimes, how that group... There's also a guy there who's really snarky. I don't know who he is. His last name is Cohen.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I just outed him or doxed him.
There's a lot of Cohens.
Yeah. Are there among Jews? Yeah. So this Cohen is not so priestly in the way he... If ever anyone says anything like, oh, the poor boys, they're in for 4 weeks already, he'll just write the same thing. It's a war.
Right.
He just responds like he's.
That's what I would do if my wife let me write anything in the group. I intentionally was not added to the group because I might say stuff like that, and I don't really have the military background to say that. Like, but we have a guy who's like he was a senior, like a mid-level officer. Like, I don't know.
He's also a linguist, or something?
No, that's different from the linguist. And what's also so interesting is that there's so many divorced parents in the group. More than in...
That's a tanks thing.
Is it a tank thing?
Yeah.
And son of
the kids are looking for security.
But So that guy in our group will also he'll
they
say
want a
this stuff.
hug. It's a metal hug of the tank because of the home they're coming
It's
from.
it's a constant hug by steel.
Exactly.
Active armor steel.
Right. So you don't find that in infantry. We're all married, and I don't know. I guess that's just the way it is. But the group itself is. I can't write anything either because there's a guy in town who has a son in the same unit, and if ever I write anything, he has some alert that goes off. And he's a British guy, and he writes the word "sado" to me privately. Sado, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was like a nice thing, like, "Oh, you're a nice little sado," or "Wow, you're such a sado."
Or
it comes from sad. It's a British thing.
I was gonna say like you're into sado.
No. Oh, maybe that's where it came from. I don't know. But
I can imagine sado being like, I thought it means.
It's
sad.
like pathetic.
It's like taking out his little violin and playing the little violin. My son, by the way, when other soldiers complain, he's a pretty funny kid.
Yeah.
And after he hangs up on the phone, because he's a sergeant, so they complain to him, and your son also, they complain to him probably. Yeah. And after he hangs up, he'll be sensitive to them and try to help them and tell them what to do. And then he hangs up and he goes, and doing a violin playing.
Yeah.
Like Cry Me a River.
Got it.
Sense of humor helps, and a sense of humor would help you too. I think, Benji.
I think it would
in general,
help.
not just
right.
in this.
Things I never thought I would do in my life. I'm doing. I'm checking Gaza City weather. I never cared.
I'm not a big weather guy. My wife is. She always knows. I mean, I experience the weather as much as the next person.
Sure.
But I'm not a weather checker. Whatever happens, happens. And in Israel, it doesn't
not much happens.
Not much happens.
No.
And although I get caught in the rain a lot, and she would have Khan Yunis weather, and then when you try to see on Google Maps where he might be, it would be like Khan Yunis, like the ton of universities there.
Sure, they're educated.
Yeah. And so Khan Yunis, like technical university, have the hours, but check hours. Hours may change due to situation, and so
exactly.
Pretty sure, they closed the university.
I think so.
There are too many universities there, and too many hospitals per capita.
Tons of hospitals, but I've heard about those. Some of them are like
schools per capita. In fact, there's like university per capita. I don't think they understand per capita is supposed to be just a measurement, but they took it literally and they made one per person.
Something like that. Oh, their hospitals are not all, meaning they're very small. They're like 10 beds, some of them.
Right.
I don't know what the model is there. Like anyone opens a hospital, it's a thing.
I think there are some hospitals there where it's like the one-man band, the guy who has like the kicking the bass drum with his foot, and then there's the cymbals on his knees, and then he has the harmonica. There's like one. It's a doctor. I'm thinking of a man. He's a doctor. He's a male nurse as well.
And a terrorist.
And he does the admissions too.
One way, there's a lot of ways this affects you as a parent. And again, we're like, being a parent is very different than being the kid in it. In some ways, it might even be harder. Like I think.
I don't think it's harder to be the parent.
It's probably not. No, it's probably not. It feels hard sometimes. But it changes literally the way that I act. Like if you get a phone call from a number that you don't know, you don't want to pick it up. If the door knocks, you get very nervous.
Yeah.
And when I knock on people's doors on Shabbat, when I don't want them to think the worst, so I'll knock like dun dun.
Yeah.
Like that, like I'll do a little tune.
Right.
Because I don't think the army would do that.
No. The kids come home also.
The kids come home, which is a crazy thing if you think that you sent your kid in World War II to France.
Right. You wouldn't see them for...
You wouldn't see them for years, maybe. You get some censored letter back, and they would, just go to the countryside maybe, and I don't know what their R&R would be. But they wouldn't be coming home all the time. So here they come home, some rarely, but when they come home, they're just home for Shabbat, which is... for them, I think it's a crazy disconnect, and you don't know what to do because, first of all, in general, when you have a kid who's at war, you don't understand what they're going through.
Right.
Like
I was in the army, but I did not see any battle, and I have no idea what it's like.
Right. So it's like your kid's on Mars. So, and you don't know, should you ask a million questions? Probably not.
Right.
You want to ask a million questions. Are you asking too much? And it makes it difficult, like, to know how much to annoy your kid in the 24 hours that they happen to be home. And then they got to go back, and that's hard every time.
Right. No, it's too hard. Yeah, it's too hard.
I give a bracha every time my son goes back. Yeah, actually, on October 7th, when he got called in, it was a holiday Simchas Torah, and so I drove him to the spot where the bus was going to pick him up, and I'm wearing a kippah, right? Like, it's the only time I ever drove with a kippah on Shabbat.
Right.
It's the only time I ever drove on Shabbat, really.
Right.
And
you usually take your kippah off when you do that kind of stuff.
That was the joke. I had my kippah on. I drove him there, and there are other fathers with kippot dropping their kids off, and we're all giving a bracha, sort of at the same time, to our kids, sending off to war, which is a crazy idea. It's not so crazy.
We didn't have that because our son was in. It was in for that Shabbat, for that holiday, and so
it's only crazy.
And then we didn't see him for 3 weeks.
It's only crazy because we were delusional. We were delusional that you send your kid to the army, and the army's built to fight. And
I think we were delusional in more ways than just that. We were delusional that, at the country level, that this wouldn't happen. Like I said, we were living living on credit. We didn't. Now I see kind of clearly how deep in debt we were. Like how we were just not. The metaphor is like we weren't paying our bills. We were just, this threat was building and building, and in the north was building and building, and now we, growing and growing, and I think now we see, what it is we're facing, and unfortunately, it's the soldiers now who have to face it.
Yeah, but I think we were kind of delusional. I thought of there's also a guilt associated with it. For me, I decided to move here.
Right. Like our kids could be. You told me this, so
what?
I can't steal it.
You could steal it.
That that if you had moved here, like your son would be at college somewhere at a kegger, and instead he's, koshering a kitchen in Khan Yunis,
Exactly.
sort of.
Yeah. There's something to that, and all these kinds of thoughts enter your mind, and it's not easy, and it's also you want to be strong for them. Like one way that it's changed my perception is that I have this literally two sides of my brain when it comes to what the country should do, what the military should do, right? Like you
mean figuratively, two sides. You do have two sides of your brain, literally.
So literally,
that's what you're talking about.
No, both.
Okay.
Both.
Let's see.
It's not going to work out. One side of the brain is saying, let's say, we need to destroy them. Mm-hmm. The other side is, in the sector my son's in, it should be nice and quiet. Live and let live a little bit.
That sector.
Really. Or I'm sort of a bleeding heart. I actually care about the Gazan civilians. I care. Right. You don't even like when I call them civilians, or you don't like when I call them...
No, it's not that I don't like civilians, but non-combatants, I think, is the technical term, especially.
That's
the important distinction.
Baby non-combatant or something.
Right.
I would feel bad that they die. It's necessary,
right.
I guess.
Everyone feels bad when babies die. You're not going to... Right.
Oh, okay. Good.
I'm not gonna.
So we agree about something.
Yeah.
But... when he and sometimes I worried, okay, are we fighting in a way that really that to the extent possible minimizes non-combatant, it minimizes deaths of non-combatants,
right?
And I may discuss that over the course of a Shabbat, maybe, and then I get nervous. Did my son take some message? So the message to him would be, don't take any chances. Shoot everything that moves. You're better than 1,000 of them.
That doesn't follow the rules of war, but I'm just saying, and that, that's not your
what?
That's not your. You don't want to shoot everything that moves.
Of course not. I don't mean shoot everything that moves.
I'm just trying to keep you out of trouble on the podcast.
I think people know what I mean. That he shouldn't take any chances.
I know exactly what you mean, and that's right.
But it's almost like a talisman, meaning I have to say it.
What's a talisman?
I don't know.
Oh.
The last words to my son when he leaves have to be the same exact things, with some deep anxiety.
The same thing.
That I have to say the same words, which is, don't take any chances. You're better than 1,000 of them.
All right.
I said it every time he leaves.
So I'll say, you share that. I'll share what I say. which is see you soon would be instead of like something too heavy or a bracha or something, which I also did.
Right.
But see you soon was the thing that we always said. Right now, my son is out. Your son is in, and my son is out of Gaza. He was in for like 5.5 months, and now he's been out for a couple of months, and there's a huge difference. I think what summed it up for us and something that helped us get through it was the phrase, because they were out of contact sometimes for, I mean, not usually more than a couple of weeks. Probably that was the longest. And no news is good news. That's what we would tell ourselves. No news is good news. And that's what other parents, that's what worked with to help, and somehow you got used to it. And somehow they got used to it.
I had an incident the other day where I got a phone call from a number I didn't know. Mm-hmm. I picked up the phone, and the woman said, "Are you Binyamin Hain?" I said, "Yes." This is Tel Shomar Hospital. And
oh man, silence.
And now, what I had forgotten was that I had been in touch with them like a month ago. Not to them. I thought I was in touch with Sheba Medical Center, some division. It had to do something to do with work. It had nothing to do with anything.
But that's the same. Sheba Tel Shomer.
I didn't know that. I didn't remember that. And
you should, because that's where our sons were both born.
On the same day.
On the same day in the same hospital.
That's right. I forgot you were there. You delivered him?
No, I waited outside.
Right.
They didn't let me into the delivery room. Very paternalistic, and yet against fathers.
Right. Yeah. But she said this is Tel Shomer Hospital.
But the baby they brought, I didn't see your son brought out, but there were babies being brought out, and the first one that I liked was mine.
Really?
Or maybe they just gave me the first one that I liked.
No way to know.
He's
a good kid.
Worked out. Yeah.
Anyway, she says it's Tel Shomer Hospital, and then there's silence. Like, she didn't say anything. And I said, "Is it about my son?" And she pauses. She didn't say it. And then she says...
Because she also realizes that there's a war now at this point. Now she realizes that she's...
I don't know what she realized.
Scaring you.
But I don't know what. But I said, "Is it about my son?" And she said, "I don't know." No, she said, "I don't know," because it was about someone who she didn't know if this person
she really
that I
didn't
called
know
about was my son.
Right.
And I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean you don't know?" And then she explained, "Well, you had been in touch a while ago, and we're calling you back now from the administrative office of the hospital." And then I started crying.
Right.
And then she started crying.
Oh man. And
this was like a horrible Israeli moment of tears.
That is a story that sums up the situation here, and also the crying.
Horrible thought I had.
I'd love to hear a horrible thought, because it's been I think it's been too light so far. So if you could bring it down a little, let's try.
Well, talk me out of this, right? I had this thought at the beginning of the war. This goes back to the guilt factor. Mm-hmm. I thought of... You
should join the army.
Yeah?
I think. Is that where you're going with this?
No, I don't think they want me.
Oh.
I'm Haredi. First of all, colors... I have a lot more... I don't know if it's rage or problems with Haredim. Not rage, but like I never thought about the issue so much. Now, like the rest of Israel. Yeah. I think about it. But like the guilt that he's in this situation because of me, which is not so logical actually, because he really wanted to be in the army.
Well, he's in every situation because of you. It's half your fault.
That's true. But I thought of like an analogy. It's not a good analogy exactly.
Well, I think especially if it's not a good analogy, say it.
And that would be that there was a Broadway show, and it was the biggest, the hottest ticket in town. Yeah. And everybody wanted to get in.
Better than Cats.
Better than Cats. I laughed, I cried. And I went to the show with my family because I heard there were some tickets at the box office. Uh-huh. And I get up to the box office, and I say, "Okay, we're a family of 5. I'll take 5 tickets, please." And she said, "You're in luck. There's 5 seats." Boom.
Is this a story or is this an analogy?
It's a really long, boring analogy.
Okay.
It's related to Broadway because the Tonys happened last night.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I know that because I wasted a lot of time at work today. And so nobody watches the Tonys anymore.
No.
So
I don't think even Tony watches the Tonys anymore.
Definitely not. So the woman says, "Oh, we have 5 seats," and she's she's going to slide the tickets over, and I give her my credit card, and she says, "No, you don't pay."
At the end of this analogy, you're going to have to explain every part. What is the credit card?
Yeah.
What is the woman? What is the sliding over?
Everything.
What is the show?
I'll explain every bit of this analogy.
Okay.
And she says, "No, you don't pay." And I say, "What do you mean I don't pay?" She said, "No, they pay." And she points to my children. And I say, "They pay? They don't have any money. Like, they're little kids. They're tiny." She said, "No, they don't pay now. One day they'll pay." And I take the tickets and I take them into the show.
Uh-huh.
Now that's a deep, dark thought. Do you want the nimshal of every part of it?
Yeah.
The woman is God. I'm sort of a feminist.
The woman is gone. And yet you're a misogynist because a woman is the salesperson.
The show is the Zionist dream.
Okay. Did it win the Tony?
Actually, it swept.
Okay.
Yeah. Next year, though, it's closing.
Oh, man.
And the credit card is pain. Credit card is real pain. So I come here and I move to Israel when it's all lights and action and music
pay for their own ticket.
And I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to pay.
The kids
I'm going to enjoy the show.
Right.
My kids are going to pay. They're going to have to deal with all this stuff.
Right. I have a thing. Is it done? It was now it's clear. That analogy made it clear.
Is there any other part? The box office?
I tell people sometimes as a joke, like when they're videoing their kid's graduation or whatever, or something at a nursery school, I'm like, be careful not to video more than half of your life because you won't have time to watch it.
I don't know how anyone watches any of it.
But I would say to you, be careful to use an analogy that's more than half as long as the podcast because you won't be able to explain it.
Or it'll be cut.
Or it'll be cut.
Yeah, that's also possible.
Only
I think look, it's hard, and I think that
and the kids also are going to be they're going to have, like you said before, your son's service has been extended. So is my son. It's happening automatically.
Yeah.
But also it's half voluntary. They ask them to sign, but even if they don't sign, they extend the service.
Well, I can tell you, and only in Israel, a little piece of like weirdness, and that is the army is a little bit like makeshift in some ways, like Israel is, right?
Yeah.
So my son was told if he can find a replacement for himself, maybe he'll get out early, meaning he won't have to do a full 4 months beyond his regular service.
Can it be a foreign worker? Can he bring in like a Filipino?
I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe that could be a solution.
But he's not like the head of HR for the army. Like he knows the people around him in the house in Gaza that they're shooting out of. Like, where's he going to find a replacement?
Right.
You can't take a terrorist. Like, that's not going to work.
I'm looking at him, Benji.
No, I don't think so.
You're not too old.
I'm too bald.
You give away the location.
Exactly.
What I'd like to do to maybe get us out of this hole that we've dug for ourselves in this episode is there's a few. So
I don't think we should dig it out of the hole before I say something.
What?
I am incredibly proud of all of our children.
Yes.
I'm also hopeful. Right? It's a little bit dark now, but there's going to be light.
Right.
And they're doing amazing things, and this generation really has proven itself, right?
Yeah.
I made fun of them all the time. I made fun of my son, loser, pathetic generation.
You never amount to anything.
You don't clean your room.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you be more like me?
They made a huge mess in Gaza, by the way.
That part works out. I think that there's an element there of them never cleaning their rooms.
Right. They will never make that bed.
Also, all the social media, maybe, like that impacts them.
But without being like too cynical, and with everything you said about when they need to be careful, they need to be careful, but they also are sensitive to not causing unnecessary suffering, and that's also something that's why that's something that's amazing. That's something that and people, because we know the soldiers, I know that for a fact. Like I can't say that there is 0 instances of people going too far, but I can say knowing the people who are there, even that British guy who says Sado, like even his kid is a good kid.
They're all good kids. They're amazing.
And so we know the people, we're calling them kids, but we know the men.
Yeah, it's also meaning we know a lot just as parents, meaning we know the news before it happens, and we also know the lies that are told about what's happening in there.
Right. But that's what they turned out great, and that's why it's like Israel's becoming more militarized a little bit. Like people are talking about it explicitly. We heard Naftali Bennett, the former prime minister, talk over Shavuot, and he said that we're going to need to be more militarized. In other words, people have to do more army service, and people have to do longer army service, and even people who don't do army service will have to maybe volunteer to do, defend towns and whatever in they call kitot konenu, but I guess like local, like National Guard or type things to volunteer for that. And the school that's near the elementary school where both of our sons went has now these flags of all the army units outside, and has an explicit thank you to the IDF. And the kids I think younger kids are being educated now to be much more conscious of the army, and I'm thinking that's in a sense good to prepare them. But on the other hand, our kids weren't exposed to that, and they turned out great for this. So maybe we shouldn't change anything. And because it worked for these guys, like we might be screwing it up.
You're saying we shouldn't become more militarized?
At least in terms of educating the kids. Like, however we educated them, which was, it seemed
terrible,
failed.
Yeah, horrible
in every way.
Yeah,
but it worked. Maybe the combination of having fun, being happy, optimistic, not being overexposed to the military, playing a lot of video games. Video games might have helped them.
Yeah. He actually brought a Nintendo Switch into Gaza, my son. That's no joke.
It's free time?
Well,
infantry has more free time than tanks. Infantry, when they're done what they're doing, they can play Nintendo or relax.
Yeah, sure.
The tank guys have to fix their tanks. It's a harder, I'm not comparing, but it's a harder job. It's like being in the Navy, but on land.
Yeah, there's I think a lot of boredom in war. Like my son wasn't such a reader. He's like reading Milton now in there. He's not Milton. It's some science fiction thing. I don't know what he's reading, but these really thick books really with a lot of words. And the weird thing is, I bought him the Nintendo Switch because I'll buy him anything.
Right.
Like my daughter.
I don't know what a Nintendo Switch is.
I don't know either. My daughter complains all the time that we favor him because he's in the army, and the truth is that we favor him because he's in the army. So he could literally ask for anything.
That's true.
Meaning, I got this idea that he would like. He told me that he found this beautiful engraved sword in a Gazan's house.
You can't take it.
No, he didn't take it, but he was describing it to me how gorgeous it was. I start looking online for $50,000, authentic 1600s
from the
swords.
Ronin in Japan. From the what are they called?
I think they're the Ronin.
The Ronin, but they're a type samurais.
Yeah, it wasn't a samurai sword. Those are too common.
You're an expert. You developed some expertise.
I did. I watched what's it called? Shogun.
So. I also we're not spoiling them. We're getting them whatever they possibly could need to make them more effective or make them happier or less, suffer less. We spent thousands of shekels on gushers because gushers are great at keeping soldiers awake. They know the gusher candies are like with the extra sugar liquid inside.
It's the sugar that keeps them awake?
Popping gushers, caffeine pills in the beginning, but also like whatever, phone chargers. I spent a lot of money on phone chargers. Mm-hmm. And just right. My wife says, she quotes me a lot, like in the beginning, I was like, I don't care what it costs. That goes
Words
back to
that never exited your mouth before, right?
Right. That goes back to the living on credit. So I continued that for a little while after the war started to get them whatever they need. And now, anyway. So they're going to have longer army service, but there's a good side to that, Benji.
What?
Less chance of them going to prison. You don't go to prison when you're in the army.
You can go to military prison.
Yeah, but that's not the same.
It's not?
I think they'll keep them out of trouble.
You can't. Maybe. Like he won't join
out of petty trouble.
He won't convert to Islam in a military prison.
Getting back to like what we get them, what they need and what they want. It's not just there's also military equipment. Like we just bought our son a new helmet.
Nice.
And
what color?
Bright orange.
Right.
Green. And it wasn't cheap. Like I crowdfunded in my family for it. I think I might have made a few shekels on the deal.
No, there was a mad scramble in the beginning to get gear, and I found myself like basically I think at some guy's house I don't know getting
happens to you a lot.
It does. But this one was for a different purpose, and it was to get like a ceramic vest for.
Yeah, that was super. So
and he gave me a vest.
Very important for infantry.
I was excited. I brought it home. It turned out it was like for a child, like or a journalist. That's actually what I found out. Journalists don't get the full thing.
For a child journalist,
maybe
they don't get the full thing.
It goes with the job. So it was useless. I think it's still in my house. So if you want to become a journalist,
but like you say, if you want to
in a war zone, I have a vest for you. Whoever's out there,
a journalist with a
Tucker Carlson.
Why would you wish an ill-fitting ceramic vest on Tucker Carlson?
He hates us now.
He does?
He turned on us.
Oh, I haven't been watching.
Not if he hates us. You know.
I wish him a long life.
He's like one of these like in the right wing or the populist part of the Republican Party. They're very much.
This
like
is not an American political. What are you doing
sorry,
here? It's an entirely different podcast.
I left the topic.
And
the topic is difficult.
So some of the equipment is Israeli made that we've got, and some of it's American made. We bought our tank soldiers wear these like coveralls that are made out of a material called Nomex. It's like fireproof. Mm-hmm. You can get them on Amazon. We got them on Amazon. They're amazing quality, surplus, and it's not just the soldiers that have been dependent on American supplies, but I myself have, I will admit, become more and more dependent on supplies from America, particularly from the state of Kentucky, particularly bourbon. Has been a kind of a liquid crutch for me, and yet more supportive in a non-liquid crutch.
Right. Helps you sleep.
I don't know if it helps me sleep, but if you just do like the take bourbon, drink bourbon, and repeat until you wake up, then I guess it helps you sleep.
Right.
I did 23andMe.
Because
in general, to something I was interested in, and it turns out I'm a genetic match for bourbon, so it explains a lot.
Okay. Yeah. And your son?
Not a big drinker.
No,
my son.
No. No. My son is in Nachal, and there's a joke there that they're all high all the time, or they like weed. I only learned this lately. And they wear these bright green berets. Yeah. And the joke in Nachal apparently is that there will, at the end of their course, they do this massive like run where they have to get somewhere, they have to carry stuff. Right. That they would walk. Only Nachal would walk 70 kilometers, and they get the beret to get a bit of green. So
that's a good one.
Right.
Maybe we can end on that note. I don't want to end.
Drugs and
no.
And alcohol are what's sustaining us.
The
right?
note, just to take it back, maybe to Norm Macdonald a little bit, or maybe not just Norm Macdonald. He's the best comedian ever, but any comedian. That the sense of humor that's embodied in that joke about how far they'll go for some marijuana, some Mary Jane, some magic cigarettes, if you will. I don't know what the kids call it. Weed. I don't think. By the way,
think so.
They call it weed.
I think so.
Not pot. They don't say pot.
No, they use that for something that you would cook in.
Right. But I think we can benefit from a sense of humor. I hope that this podcast had a little bit of humor in it, even though the subjects were very heavy. And I hope that our kids come out of this with a sense of humor. I think that it'll be very helpful for them. If they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope this thing is over soon. You can get back to being somewhat sober. And I can get some sleep. And I can answer the phone in peace. And I can knock on doors like a normal person.
Yeah, go back to knocking like a normal person instead of your...
And I hope, we didn't want to make light of something. We did, but that's, I think, the way that we're able to process a little bit of what we're going through.
This was helpful for me, Benji. I got I think a free therapy session here.
I think I did too.
And, well, you'll be getting a bill.
I thought it was free.
All right, so look forward to doing a happier topic next time.
Absolutely. And hopefully next time we speak, the war will be going well. Hamas will disappear. We'll have total victory, as your friend Netanyahu says we will.
It's my buddy. Let's hope so.
And these idiots in the north, they'll stop shooting things at us.
Yeah.
Like, what's their issue? Maybe we'll talk about that another time.
That's another episode. None of that is likely, but let's hope.
Why not?
All right.
Mashiach.
See you soon, Benji.
Bye, everyone.